Hello? Today, I will tell the story of a 2006 film called Marie Antoinette, Austria. The year is 1768. The Empress Maria Theresa of Austria decides to strengthen her relationship with France. For this purpose, she sends her younger daughter Maria Antoinette, a 14-year-old girl who spends all her time with her friends and her dog, does not dare to cross her mother. The girl agrees to become the wife of the heir to the French throne. Her mother is convinced that this marriage will strengthen the alliance between their powers and improve the economic situation of the country. A few days later, the carriage arrives at the border between Austria and France. Having organized a symbolic tent, the royal servants hold a ceremony. Entering the tent from the side of her country, the girl must leave everything that reminds her of her homeland. After saying goodbye to her friends, leaving her dog, personal belongings, and clothes behind, Maria Antoinette changes into traditional French attire. Leaving the tent on the French side, the girl receives the status of Dauphin Marie Antoinette. Soon, the daughter of the Austrian Empress arrives at Louis XIV's resting place and meets the king. It is also here that she meets her future husband for the first time. The attention of the dukes and countess is fixed on the charming girl. Some see her as an Austrian spy. Others admire the beauty of Marie Antoinette. Arriving in Versailles, the girl becomes the central figure of the royal court to know not to take their eyes off her, discussing the appearance, breasts, and manners of the charming girl. A couple of days later, a solemn ceremony takes place in which Mary becomes the wife of Louis XVI. The rings are exchanged and the relationship is legalized. The couple dances their first wedding dance. In the evening, they are put to bed, and the curtains are closed so that the newlyweds can have sex. In the morning, the grandson shares his impressions with his grandfather and tells him that nothing happened during the night. Inspecting the house she has to live in, Maria feels uncomfortable as she is constantly surrounded by servants who do not allow her to be alone. While under the care of noble ladies, the girl cannot do anything on her own. She is awakened in the morning, dressed according to her status, and accompanied to breakfast during meals. Maria tries to find common ground with her husband, and expresses genuine enthusiasm for her husband's hobby of making keys and locks. The shy Louis the Younger is afraid to approach his wife and ignores her, constantly going off to hunt. During ceremonial dinners, the girl realizes that the French court is swarming with rumors. Most often discussed is the king's favorite, Madame du Barry. The woman worked in a brothel for a long time and had no right to be at court, but the king granted her the title of countess. Other nobles, dissatisfied with such manipulation and considered the actions of Louis the Elder immoral. No less popular a person to discuss becomes Mary herself, who has no intimacy with her husband, in consequence of which she cannot give birth to an heir to the throne. With each passing day, the girl's position in society is deteriorating. Some call her barren, others call her a frigid, weeping with insult, while she tries to seduce her husband every night, inventing new ways to hint at sex. The shy Dauphin cannot touch his consort and ignores her. While meeting with Missy's ambassador, Maria learns that her mother is worried about the absence of her grandchildren. She believes that this reflects negatively on relations between Austria and France. Therefore, Maria must employ feminine wiles to get the prince into bed. The King of France notices that the girl is ignoring his minion. Mercy's ambassador asks Marie to be more prudent, as ignoring Madame du Barry could spoil relations with Louis XVI. After giving in to her entreaties, the girl tries to talk to du Barry, but is limited to a few phrases and leaves after seeing the king's approving gesture and smile. Gradually, the girl becomes accustomed to life in the royal court. She no longer molests her husband but eats sweets, finding in them a way of distracting herself from carnal pleasures. One day, the man and his brother are going on another hunt. The wife expresses her displeasure and feels insulted. She wants to give birth to a child before her daughter-in-law, Maria Josephine, does. Before she leaves, her husband promises that he will take care of it with her upon her return. The ambassador is concerned about what is happening and goes to see the king. Louis sees no reason to worry, as he has no plans to break the alliance between their countries. Knowing that his grandson has not had children for a long time, he commissions a doctor to examine the king and his wife. Once again, hearing from her mother, Mary learns that all of her sisters have been able to give birth to worthy heirs, and she is the only one unable to please the empress. Feeling pressured, she tries to mend her relationship with her husband, but they fail. Soon the situation worsens as Maria Josephine gives birth to Louis's brother's son. Tired of suffering and disappointment, Maria decides to start life with a clean slate, buying luxury dresses, shoes, cosmetics, and alcohol. She is drawn into the French way of life of the rich. The girl gambles and loses large sums of money without worrying about the consequences. Trying to find a new way to have fun, she sneaks into a masquerade ball and meets a military man. Count Ferdinand is a womanizer, able to find an approach to a girl to get under her skirt. Remembering her husband, the girl escapes and meets her friends at dawn. Upon her return home, Dauphine learns that the king has contracted smallpox, and his condition deteriorates sharply. Upon learning of her lover's imminent death, Dubarry collects all the jewels given by the king. Soon, Louis XV passes away, and Marie, who leads a hedonistic life, becomes queen. The girl's husband is young and foolish. He knows nothing about politics and the economy of the state. Listening to his advisors, he decides to support the American Revolution by showing his power to Britain. Soon, France's debts increase. The economic situation deteriorates sharply. Despite this, Louis continues to sponsor America, trying to convince everyone of his power and authority. Soon, Mary celebrates her 18th birthday. The girl throws a loud party, during which she spends a lot of money. She is not frightened by the economic crisis, the poverty, and the oppressed state of the citizens. Joseph II, Marie's own brother who has decided to visit his sister, arrives at Versailles. Passing the words of his mother, the man asks the girl to be more prudent, changing the circle of communication, removing herself from alcohol and gambling. Meeting the king at the zoo, the emperor tries to understand the reason preventing him from having children. After learning the intricacies of private life, he explains to Louis how to have sex with the example of locks and keys. Having grasped the basics, the king heads into the bedroom and makes love to his wife for the first time. 9 months later, the queen gives birth to a baby girl and names her after her mother, Maria Theresa. The royal nobility attends the birth, surrounding the girl as they want to see the king's heir. Upon learning that it is a daughter, they do not celebrate the birth of the child. Mary wants to feed the girl herself, but by royal tradition she is not allowed to do so. The happy father and husband gives his beloved a country palace, avoiding alcohol and gambling. The queen moves out of town and devotes all her time to her daughter. Sometime later, Louis arrives at the country house and invites his wife to Versailles, as there will soon be a ball dedicated to the soldiers. When she returns home, she greets the dukes and counts of various countries. In one of the men she recognizes Fersen and does not take her eyes off him. Knowing, she notices it, but she thinks the queen is decent enough not to pull up her skirt in front of this womanizer. In the evening, Mary gives in to temptation and gives herself to the count. The pair feel a mutual sympathy and they begin an affair. However, Fersen must leave for duty and leaves the queen. The queen's daughter has grown up to be a real princess. Strolling in the courtyard, Mary communicates with her counselor. Ambassador Murphy is concerned about the king's foreign policy and asks the girl to influence her husband. Their conversation is interrupted by the girl, who announces that the Austrian empress has passed away. Another year passes, and the queen gives birth to a boy, Louis Joseph, the Dauphin of France. Several years pass. The policies of Louis XVI led France into an economic crisis. People dissatisfied with the king's rule took the Bastille and are not going to stop there. Soon they will begin a march toward Versailles and the royal family. Needing to flee, the know-it-alls fear reprisals. Leaving France, Louis has no intention of fleeing. Mary supports her husband's decision. A couple of days later, hundreds of hungry and furious people who have organized the French Revolution reach Versailles. They storm the king's house, throwing stones through the windows. Mary goes out on the second-floor balcony and worships the people. For a few moments, the crowd of people with torches, shovels, and pitchforks quietens, but afterwards continues the assault. Realizing that the impoverished French will not spare an infantile king incapable of running a state. In the morning, the royal family leaves the palace for good, saying goodbye to their ancestral home.